Let's move on to The Guardian now, Eddie. And Donald Trump wants to get rid of the Constitution, which I believe he's allowed to say, due to the First Amendment to some document.
Well, yeah, it's The Guardian. Biden rebukes Trump for saying Constitution should be terminated. The thing is, Trump continues to claim that Biden won key states through electoral fraud. The thing with Trump is he knows the power of social media. Mm-hmm. If you just throw the message out, there'll be enough people who believe you. And in that, he knows there's power in that. So all of it's kind of pointless, really. It's just... He's just drumming up his support as ever.
Yeah. But it didn't seem to pan out that way in the midterms. Everyone was thinking that there would be more of a resurgence of the Trumps. But most of the people that Trump backed didn't do particularly well.
No, they didn't do well.
No, they didn't do well.
But it's about his ego, isn't it? Everything about Trump is about his ego. He'll always have a certain part of the population which is massive supporter of his, and then they can just pretend that he didn't lose, because that's what it's all about, that, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to accept the result of an election, then there is no point having an election, I suppose. Like, that's the thin end of the wedge, isn't it?
Well, it is. And look, the reality is that Trump might get the nominee for the Republican vote, but the reality is he's never going to win, because January the 6th left an indelible stain on his reputation. The people aren't going to forget what happened. There were awful, terrible scenes that undermined democracy that he was associated with. So, to me, he's damaged goods, and he always will be. So all these little tricks, of course.
But if I had footage of you from enough years ago, would you have been saying, there's no way the guy from The Apprentice is going to win? This is like a joke.
Well, it's like when Reagan came in, wasn't it?
You really are older than we think.
Yeah, I am. I'm knocking on, yeah. But yeah, it's madness. But that's American politics, isn't it? It's about show. It's not necessarily about substance.
Yeah, and that is the problem of a presidential system, that instead of voting for a party and various policies, it's all about, I like that person, for whatever reason.
Well, the reality is, as well, is that, like I said before, the 4 years of Trump's presidency were so toxic, they were so divisive, that my partner is American, and I talk to a lot of her family, I have friends over there, and everybody, even people who supported Trump, were saying to me, Francis, we're just tired. We don't want the constant outrage. We don't want the waking up in the morning and say, oh, sweet Lord, what has he done now?
So do you think Trump would have lost the election if it weren't for COVID?
Actually, I don't. I think it would have been much closer, and I think that has actually more to do with Biden being a really weak candidate. I think if they'd actually appointed a strong candidate with strong ideas, with a real personality, with somebody who could have gone out to the Rust Belt and said, look, we're going to work for you, we're going to be a more traditional Democrat Party that's going to work for working class people, they would have had a real chance. Instead, what they've got is a glorified corpse just up there.
But the lies work, and and they did work for him to a certain extent, and it's still working for him again to a certain extent. And unfortunately, it's what's made its way into our politics, because we've seen so much of that with Boris.
Yeah.
To say something that might not be true, and if someone holds you to account, accuse them of bias because they're holding you to account.
You say the same thing long enough, no matter if it's a lie, enough people will believe it.
I use the same tactics in my relationship.